All right, folks, welcome back to round 3 of the All-American Racing Series. Glad to have everybody back. I will be your broadcaster tonight, John Ross. Hope everyone had a great week last week, as we did. We had a fantastic Long Beach race that was presented there by the V3 network. Fantastic race at Long Beach. We're going to get into that, but we've got another nice race coming up here at Sonoma Raceway track, and this is going to be your round 3 race of the All-American Racing Series. So welcome back to the American Racing Network. And we want to share, as you can see, we've got about 5 minutes left here in qualifying, but we're going to empty this out, and we want to kind of show where we're sitting here on the grid for qualifying tonight. As you can see, Blake Scott, which was your week 1 winner, had a really strong race there at Long Beach, had a little mistake about halfway through that race, turned it over to Ken Huber. Ken taking the win, finished second in week 1, has a very fast qualifying lap here, is going to start on row outside of the first row. Mark Scott, Blake's father, is going to be starting third. Mark, another really fast, both of those Scott drivers in the Mustangs. Kurt Basler with another great run. Kurt, one of the better paint jobs that we have here on that Porsche, is going to be sitting in fourth. And then we've got Nick Cody. Nick, really fast driver, has had some really good runs so far in the first 3 races or 2 races of this season, and then some of the recruitment races that we had. Jeff Perchowski is going to be in 6th. Cody Williams is going to be in 7th. 8th is going to be Samanchik, and Moskowitz is going to be a 9th, and then Trevor O'Neill is going to round out your top 10. So let's get into just a little bit of where we are in the points right now as we stand. So I'm just going to pop that up on the screen. We're going to try to hide that timing tower so you can take a better look at it. As you can see right now, we have just a tremendously tight race here at the front with Ken Huber holding on to that number 1 position. He did move up 1 slot with that win last week at Long Beach. Blake Scott is going to fall 1 spot, and he is going to be in second. So you've got your first 2, 1 and 2 in the points, going to start 1 and 2 respectively on the grid tonight. Dylan is going to be in third. I do not believe that we have Dylan with us tonight, so you're going to see him fall down just a little bit. That's going to open the door there for Mark Scott, that's sitting in a 4th. Well, really tied for 3rd. Cody Williams in 5th. Daniel Sheffer in 6th. Miles Gilsinger in 7th. Christopher in 8th. Nicholas Cody, you can see there, in 9th. And then Perchowski is going to be in 10th. So really great points battle that we have going on. And we're going to see if we can show some of our, let's pull our grid back up, because we want to continue to go on down. And once we get qualifying done, we'll be able to pop that grid up for everyone to see, as it looks like we've got a couple of minutes left in there. But I'm just going to go on through the field just a little bit. 11th is going to be Noah Zimmerman. Daniel Sheffer is going to be in 12th. Rory is in 13th. Brian Beckett, 14th. Angel Rodriguez in 15th. Leroy Koblenz is going to be in 16th. And Ron Losi is going to be in the 17th position. Not qualifying, Cordell Cahill is going to be starting in the back of the field in 18th. 19th is going to be Bob Carroll, and then Russ Martin is going to be starting in 20th. So we're going to do something a little bit different tonight. I'm going to see if I can pull one of these drivers up and have a little bit of a conversation with him. Let's see if we can get a hold of Daniel and see if we can move him up to the broadcast booth. Daniel, this is John Ross here in the broadcast booth. You got a copy? All right, it does sound like there's Daniel. Daniel, you got a copy? All right, I do not believe that we have a copy.
There, I'm here.
There you are. Hey, Daniel. Sorry to spring a booth pull on you here, but wanted to talk to you a little bit about tonight and about this track here at Sonoma and what we can expect from the drivers.
Yeah, it's a fun track. It's obviously a lot of elevation change, some tight corners, a lot of blind spots. It's a real fun track to drive. We'll see how it goes tonight. Don't feel like I'm all that fast here, but war of attrition, we'll see how it goes.
Yeah, I think we will. I was watching a couple of people there in practice, and I'll get you back down as I know we've got just a couple of seconds left here in the qualifying. But I was watching a lot of people. Looks like turn one coming up that hill is going to be kind of the calamity corner, if you will, tonight. Were you noticing that in practice as well?
Yeah, it's tough. You really gotta kind of dive into the left right after the pit exit. That's like your breaking point, and up top of the hill, it's completely blind, so it's gonna be real rough. Hopefully, we'll all make it through the first couple laps.
Yeah, well, we appreciate it, man. We'll be watching you on the broadcast, and best of luck to you.
All right, man. Thank you very
All right,
much.
thank you. All right, we're going to move Daniel back down. Let's see if we can get him back to where he was. There we go. So there was Daniel Sheffer. And as you can tell, folks, this track is going to be a hot track. And it's certainly, you're going to see as we're going to show that uphill. And I'm going to see if I can't get us a turn one camera going that might be able to help us look at that. No, it doesn't look like we're going to be able to see turn one. But what we want to make sure that, oh, that's because qualifying is over. And there we go. So let's see if we can get ourselves live. And we are going to pop into our grid. And we're going to show that grid right here. So as you can see now, that is officially over. You can see Blake Scott taking that pole position, Ken in second, Mark Scott in third, Kurt fourth, Cody in fifth, Perchowski in sixth, Cody Williams in seventh, Mark is in eighth, Moskowitz in ninth, O'Neill 10th, and Zimmerman in 11th. And then Sheffer, who we spoke to a little bit before the race, is going to be in 12th. And then you're going to have 13th at Rory Stumpf, Brian Beckett 14th, Angel Rodriguez 15th, Leroy Koblenz 16th, Ron Losey 17th, Bob Carroll 18th, Russ Martin Jr. is in 19th, and then Cordell is going to round out your 20 drivers that are going to take the field tonight. It's going to be a wild one. Really looking forward to it. We're going to see if we can get down here and get on to one of our drivers. As you can see, we're going to have some pretty cool camera angles for you tonight. We've got some carousel shots here. We've got hairpins, S's. We've got a chopper cam that we're going to be able to see these drivers going through. And as we wait on Ken and Mark to be able to grid up, I can tell you that this one is going to be pretty exciting. It's one of those tracks that you do not see on a lot of series, but it runs really well. The GT3s are going to be loose here. You're going to see some looseness under braking. We're going to see a lot of off tracks as this long sweeping turns are going to be under some pretty heavy braking at some high speeds. So that's going to lend itself to some nice passing zones. And I believe you're going to see a pretty fast race here. So again, you're going to have 60 minutes as we do in all of our races. And then we will have one fast repair. All of these drivers are going to have to come down and take at least a little bit of fuel. And we're going to get everything set up with our battle boxes and show you, as you can see on the bottom right-hand corner tonight, folks, that battle box is going to show you the difference between each of those drivers as we highlight them and we go through. We're also going to have our driver details. It's going to pop up here at the bottom left. That's going to show you lap times. You can see where it says -0 because Blake has not turned a lap yet. But going through the rest of this night. And then at the top left, you're going to see, again, your timing tower. That timing tower is going to show you what a driver's interval is to the driver behind them. And it will also show you what their best lap time is and what their last lap time is. If you see a little pit on it, like you can see there with Cody and Mark Scott, where it shows pit, that means that they are in the pits currently. So both of those drivers potentially coming out of the pits after we start this race. This is going to be another one of the shots that you're going to see because this one is going to be pretty cool. You can really see the side grip that these GT3s are going to get going around these S's. Sonoma is very unique in the fact that the S's have quite a bit of an elevation change too. You can see really at the top of the screen here, you can see the elevation to down here at the very bottom of these S's. So anytime you get some elevation change, you're going to have some light suspension work, some different types of braking. As you can see them come from the very top of the screen and start working their way way down. You can see that Mustang pace car start to really dip down. This is where you're going to see a lot of drivers can make up a ton of time when they shoot down here to get some grip, or they can lose a ton of time just depending on how they take these S's. All right, folks, I hope you are ready for a big one, as we are going to have a fun one tonight here at Sonoma Raceway. 60 minutes for the GT3s with the All-American Racing Series, round 3, as we get ready to come out of this last hairpin. This is another heavy braking zone, and you are going to see a lot of drivers be able to make up a lot of time here, and you're going to see quite a bit of beating and banging, as we're going to see if we can't go into the chopper view for the green flag as they come out. And here you go. You're going to come around this nice little left-hand bend. Blake Scott is going to take your green flag. Ken Huber right behind him. As they make their way up turn 1, you can really see that elevation change. This is where a lot of drivers are going to get loose, and we've already got one. Mark Scott going off, Ken Huber going off of the track. Very early. Let's go back and watch Mark Scott as he comes out of the carousel. We're going to rewind that just a little bit. Let's see if we can back this up just for a second. It looks like he comes out of the pits and just kind of gets tapped right there in the corner, coming out hard, and he is not going to collect anyone. Let's go back and see if we can find out what happened to Ken Huber as well. Your second place driver and your points leader, I believe, is going to do the same thing. Really get that uphill, and he just gets loose. You can see him try to do a little correction. What a great job by everybody missing that driver. No harm to Ken. He's going to just gather that back up and get right back out on track. And we're going to go right back up here, because as you can see, Blake Scott without Ken and everybody having to check up as that Corvette got loose is going to open the door for Kurt to take that second place, but it's also going to open up a 1.5 second gap to second place coming through this first lap in the books. We're going to come right back up again. We're going to watch these cars really take this turn. You can see hugging the inside, heavy braking coming up back to that right-hander. Perchowski is going to be in third. There's another one getting a little loose. That is where, oh, and you can see a big Bob Carroll going off of the track in a major way here. Again, see that car just hooked to the side, and this is going to be a huge impact. Carroll is going to have to take that car back to the pits and get that thing repaired. Ron Losi off track in this Lamborghini. Let's take a look at Ron. No harm, no foul, just not quite getting that car under control coming down that heavy braking zone. All right, so let's see if we can get ourselves back up front as the craziness just continues to go around. It looks like Ron Losi again registering a crash. Let's see what happens to Ron. Oh, under braking, and that's going to be a simultaneous slide. Both drivers with no damage. Synchronized spins by both of these drivers. Blake Scott continuing to drive away from this field, a 2.4 second time, turning a 1:29.720. Folks, that is faster than his qualifying lap time, and he is going to put a 2.2 gap on Kurt and Jeff. Jeff, one of those drivers that has done really well in this series so far, has shown a lot of speed, but has been caught up in 2 accidents. I do believe in Long Beach, when I was watching that back, Jeff making a little bit of a mistake and costing him quite a few positions, but has been a quick driver so far this season. Good to see him up in that top 3. We're going to go right back here to Nicholas. Nicholas, another driver that's shown a lot of speed so far this year, has had some really fast times in practice, just not being able to put it together for a complete race just yet. Mark with that Marines paint job, we want to make sure that that we really get his name right. Mark Somancic with that Marines paint job. Porsche had a really good run in our first race. Looking here, mighty strong in 5th place. As you can see him just go off track just a little bit. Trevor O'Neill, one of his better races so far in this Acura, doing a fantastic job. He's sitting in 6th. Daniel Sheffer and Moskowitz fighting for positions. You can see Wade's going to take the inside line. Again, under heavy braking here. These two Porsches battling it out. You're going to have a sharp little left-hand sweep, and it looks like Daniel is going to give that position up to Wade. Noah Zimmerman still sitting in 9th position. Noah up 2 spots from where he started. Mark starting back in the pits, having that earlier loop coming up the turn as he exited the pits. You can see heavy front end damage on that car as he continues to drive through this field. I wouldn't be surprised if you can see him, as you can see back behind him. Looks like Ken Huber trying to rebound as Brian Beckett, getting loose on the rumble strips, got that car back under control. Ken Huber's going to take that spot over, so put Ken Huber up to 11th, as this driver's going to try to fight his way back up front. Again, folks, with an hour to go in these races, they have plenty of time to get themselves back up here, but Angel fighting really hard for this spot. As you can see, Brian got a little bit loose, and that has got this whole field checked right up behind him. Let's go on board with Angel and see how he's doing. Oh, you can see Brian getting a little loose on that rumble strip again. You could almost feel and hear the understeer on these cars as they're going through those high-speed corners. You can see Brian again taking that turn really wide, opening the door for Angel. We are in a battle. Let's watch them go up this turn 1. Oh, so loose, as you can hear as they try to gear down. You can really hear that car just get loose. The tires start screaming on it. Looks like Brian has got those tires back under a controllable temperature. Angel still right on the back bumper of this driver. We're going to stay right here as it looks like he's going to get a great run coming down the hill. We're going to come back into a heavy braking zone. Brian, I believe, is going to concede that position, so move Angel up to 12th. Roy down 1 position from our starting spot in that green and yellow Porsche right behind Brian, so he is going to set his sights on this orange and black snap-on machine. Try to get that position back that he lost on the start. Leroy Koblitz, top 10 speed in practice. Leroy, one of those drivers that will always play it safe early on in a race, but continue to pour the pressure on. So let's see if he can match that early practice pace with a great finish here tonight. Ron Losi, you saw spinning a little bit earlier, and he's going to do it again, and we're going to catch it live, folks, where he is just going to nose that Lamborghini right into the tire barrier, and to the pits that driver goes. Bob Carroll with a new paint scheme on this car this week. Bob has a lot of raw talent, a lot of raw speed. It's only a matter of time before you see that driver continuing to move up the ladder. All right, so that's going to take us through the field. Let's see if we can't get back over here with our race leader, Blake Scott. Let's take a look at some lap times. You can see last lap, Blake Scott at a 1:33.30. Kurt, though, not letting him get too far away at a 30.395. So Kurt finding a lot of speed around this track. So you can really hear that heavy braking zone. You can almost see that Porsche clipping over that curb, getting really close to those tire barriers. Let's see if we can't take a ride around this track with Kurt. Again, just a really heavy braking zone here coming up. Got to be really careful on throttle there as to not break the back tires loose. Again, another hard turn here. Pretty quick right-hander that's going to come into a heavy braking zone, and another harsh right-hander here. This is going to change some elevation, but the key is to be able to set yourself up and come out of that turn strong for this downhill. Almost a blind left-hander. And that's where that practice comes in. For those watching, these drivers will spend hours practicing these tracks just to make sure that they understand how the track feels, where the braking zones are, to make sure that they're going to maximize what they can out of these cars. Going through this group of S's with a elevation going down. And this right-hander coming up is going to be a high-speed corner that's going to be difficult for the Porsches as they struggle with some side bite at times. But you can see Kurt handling that extremely well. And again, running right over that curb, getting really close to those tire barrels. And we're going to come across the line as it looks like a 30.5 for Blake and a 30.850 for Kurt. So Blake putting about 3/10 on him. As you can see, the clouds in the background starting to get a little dark, and once that does, if that moves over the track, that's going to give these drivers a little bit of relief in some of these corners, especially some of these high speed corners. It's going to increase the grip in this track and really allow these drivers to hang on that throttle, and you'll start to see those lap times dip just a little bit. Let's go back and go on back through the field, and we have in 17th position Cody Williams in that Audi. Looks like he's struggling just a little bit. Oh, it looks like Nick Cody showing an off track. Let's see what happens here. Again, nothing too crazy, just really overcooking that uphill. And instead of looping that car, he did the smart thing, which was drive it off of that just a little bit, drive it off track just a little bit to gather it up, get it back on that racing surface, and then continue to go. As again, everybody, you can see Nicholas kicking up all of that grass, debris, dirt. That is going to be on the track. As you can see, these two drivers not far from your second place of Kurt Basler. But Nick doing a fantastic job passing Jeff Perchowski and setting his sights on a first podium of the season. Let's go back and take a look at Trevor O'Neill. Trevor, again, just that heavy downhill braking zone, getting those tires barely off of the grass, right back on the track. Ron Losey, it looks like his struggles are continuing so far tonight. Oh, and he's going to take a big hit in that car once again. Let's see if we can't back that up. Take another look at Ron. Ron just struggling at this track. Just gets those tires off, and then he's just along for the ride here, and just a massive hit. All right, it looks like we have Cody Williams back in the pits getting some damage repaired. So back up front here with Blake Scott still leading this race. Your pole sitter won race number 1, is leading here. Last lap turning a 30.585 to Kurt's a 30.971. Cody with that off track turning a 31.3. And then Perchowski faster than both of those drivers in front of him, turning a 30.881. Let's go back and take a look at these two drivers. Mark, starting from the pits, was your third place driver, and then Ken Huber right behind him on the outside pole of this race, getting loose, going up into turn one, getting an off track, but no damage on that car. Looks like he is fighting his way back. So both of these drivers, after having to stop and wait on that field to pass, back up to 7th and 8th, respectfully. And as you can see, Mark still with that damage on the front end of that Mustang. If you're just now joining us, we certainly appreciate it. We are now 15 minutes in. We're a quarter way through this round 3 All-American Racing Series race here at Sonoma Raceway. It has been an eventful race so far, as it looks like we have another crash posted. Let's go back and take a look at Leroy Koblitz. Leroy just getting those tires off in the grass, and it looks like he's just going to loop that around. I believe he will be all right, get himself back on track, and keep right on going. Let's go back over here to Mark and Ken. And as you can watch here on the timing tower at your top left-hand corner, just watch these drivers and you can see their times as they continue to try to carve through this field. As Ken Huber coming into pit, let's see if Ken is going to grab some tires and make this his one stop for tonight. Not a bad idea if he knows that he has a little bit more speed than Mark, who has that front end damage on that Mustang, but it's difficult to pass. Might want to go ahead and take that pit now, get himself out where he can run laps on his own and try to salvage the best race that he can here at this point. Again, folks, no track-wide cautions here, so you know, once that green flag drops, it's going to be a checkered flag. It's going to be your next flag. So these drivers, if you lose a little bit of time, being able to make that back up is almost a nightmare. So you can see Ken is going to come back out on this track. And again, that's pretty much what he was doing. He's going to come back just a little bit behind Leroy Koblitz, but go back up and take a look at Kurt. Kurt's still doing a fantastic job turning a 30.908 that last lap. He has had a very uneventful race, and that is probably what Kurt is looking for. He has had some pretty eventful races so far this season in our series, so I'm certain that this is kind of the run that he's been waiting on so far this season, to get out here and be able to turn some laps on his own and show what he's got in that Porsche. Nicholas is not going to let him get too far away. As you can see, he's about 3.5 seconds behind. It does look, I'm sorry, about 1.5 seconds behind, as it looks like you can see Jeff is not that far either. So, folks, we have a three-way battle here for the second place. You can see Jeff is going to take that downhill extremely wide. That Corvette is not letting that Porsche go in front of him. Turning some great lap times. That last lap for Jeff, a 30.753 to Nicholas's 30.877. So he is catching this driver slowly but surely. And it looks like all of these drivers are going to have about a 9-second lead on Mark Szymanczyk, running a fantastic race so far in this Marines colored Porsche. Again, it does look like the Porsches have some pretty decent speed, as you can tell. Kurt in a Porsche, Nicholas in a Porsche, Mark in a Porsche, all in the top 5. So 3 of these top 5 drivers in a Porsche. Blake, of course, in the Mustang, and Jeff in the Corvette. So Porsche doing very well at this track, and we thought we would see that throughout this year and throughout this season, is these tracks really faring well for some of these cars, and some of these other cars will find some places that they will struggle at. Trevor O'Neill's back in 6th in that Acura, jumping up on that curb just a little bit. It's going to open the door. Mark Scott right behind him. Mark hounding him in that Mustang, as you can hear that big V8 power of that Ford Mustang coming right down the hill, all over the back end of this Acura. Again, down underneath that heavy braking, Mark is going to get loose, but he's going to make that pass. I do believe Trevor might have seen that coming a little bit, and you're going to see Mark Sumancic coming off track as he, again, is going to go down to that downhill sweeping left-hand turn and take that turn too wide, have to slow down, and he is going to give up 2 positions, put him back to 7th, as Mark is going to get by Trevor as well. You can see Wade Moskowitz right behind Trevor, now in 6th, so put Mark Scott up to 5th as the drive to get back to the front continues for this driver. Again, starting in the pits, getting into a tussle, going up turn 1 at the drop of the green flag, having to let the field pass, and has now put himself up into the top 5. Last lap, a 30.932. You can assume that this driver is going to get that damage repaired on the front end of that Mustang when he makes his pit stop. All right, let's go back here and take a look at Wade Moskowitz with that clean Martini Porsche. All the fenders looking good. A little bit of damage on that left rear, but nothing major for that driver. Again, one of those guys that just is steady and just drives his race, finds speed where he can, and always under control in that Porsche. Daniel Sheffer doing a great job as well. You saw him really battling a little bit earlier in this race. Kind of has a spot where he's about 5 seconds ahead, 3 seconds behind the next drivers. Noah Zimmerman is going to be about 3 seconds behind Daniel. Doing a great job, running 10th. He is up 1 position from his starting spot of 11th. Last lap, Noah turned a 33.018. Angel Rodriguez, we rode on board with him as he was in a battle earlier on in this race, now sitting in the 11th position. Ken out of the pits. You did see him go down about 5 minutes ago into the pits and took his pit stop, hopefully for the rest of the night, to get himself out in clean air where he can run some lap times. Ken, last lap at a 30.381. This driver knows how to get around this track. It is just going to be about track position at this point, as unfortunately with that earlier incident, this has put Ken so far behind that that now he's really got to put the gas pedal down and try to make that time up. Leroy, we saw earlier with an off track, it looks like he's going to get in a battle here coming out of that last hairpin with Rory. Rory without a front end on that car. Let's see if we can take a look. It's like Brian Beckett with a little off track. Let's take a look at Brian. Oh, just under braking. That's the same spot that Ron Losey got some damage, and that is a heavy front. As you can see, that left front tire still pointed off to the left. I believe he's going to try to limp that car back. Oh, just a terrible, terrible accident by Brian there. Yep, and that car is just extremely hard to turn now. Certainly beats towing, because towing is going to really kill your time, but you can see just doing everything he can to kind of stay out of the way and limp this car back to pit road. Let's take a look at Rory. Rory without a front end, without fenders, is going to loop it as well by putting the power down in that Porsche right back on track. Mark off track again. Mark in 7th spot currently, and then, oh, he's going to give up that spot to Wade Moskowitz as he is going to keep rolling. Mark having a very eventful evening so far. Such a good run right there in the top 5, 5th position, before he gave up 2 spots by a little off track earlier. And then these things can happen. If it takes you out of rhythm, then it starts to become a little bit harder and harder. And sometimes these turns will creep up on you and they'll become problems. You can practice these tracks for hours and nail each one of these turns, and then you get into a race and all of a sudden one of these turns becomes a problem for you. And, then when that starts happening, it just kind of becomes a snowball. But doing fantastic. I mean, the quarters are still on it. Fenders are good. Still in 8th place, so still a great run going. Mark Scott off track. Mark, again, just giving this car everything he can to get himself back up front. Mark now in the 5th position. Right back on track, nothing hurt. All right, we're going to go back up front to Blake. As you can see, Blake Scott now starting to really put some cars several laps down. As you can see, Rory getting past. He is behind Blake. Kurt's still in 2nd position, about 7 seconds back. Jeff has now taken over 3rd. And right behind him is going to be Nicholas. Nicholas not letting Jeff get away. As we continue to take a look at these lap times, your fastest driver on the track that last lap was Blake Scott at a 30.7. And it looks like you've got Jeff at a 30.881 as we follow on along with him now. And then you had Trevor O'Neill at a 30.86. Ken Huber setting the fastest lap that last lap at a 30.273. So Ken really turning it up, trying to make up some time and salvage what he can. A top 5 would probably be where Ken would like to see himself after that first turn incident. Nicholas Cody staying extremely tight on the back bumper of Jeff. As you can see him start to close in a little bit now. That Porsche doing a great job on these downhills and under the heavy braking. Those Corvettes turn extremely well and they have a lot of horsepower. So you'll see that exit really work for Jeff and these entries really work for these Porsches. So 2 different cars really excelling in 2 different parts of the turn. Let's go to a chopper view and see if we can take a look at that. You see Jeff really using all of that track, staying right in the grooves. You see the black grooves on the track. That is where the majority of these cars run. And one of those things about road, you want to use every bit of it. If there's a curb there, you want to touch it. And you can see Jeff doing exactly that as he is going to now come into the pits and turn over that 3rd position. No, he will not, because Nicholas is going to follow him onto pit road. That might be exactly what Mark Scott wanted to see, as he might want to do one more lap to come in himself. You know that that damage on that front end has got to be slowing that driver down. The aero on that car and the downforce has to be hurt by all of that damage. So I do believe that driver comes in and gets that fixed. You're going to see even quicker lap times out of him. As we continue to look at our timing tower, you can see Ken still turning in fantastic laps at a 30.6. So that driver is coming. Mark Scott last lap turning a 30.807. Blake with a 30.479. All right, folks, as we go through these pit stops, we are going to take a quick break, show you that commercial that we have for this racing network. So we certainly appreciate it, and we will be right back with some more action. All right, welcome back, folks. As we continue to go through some pit stops, it looks like we do have Blake down pit road, and that is going to turn your race lead over to Mr. Mark, who we've seen have a little bit of issues running in the top 5. A couple little issues early on in the race, but he is back on track and he is putting down some laps led. As you can see, he is right now leading. Behind him is going to be Blake Scott. He is going to be less than a second, as you can see that right on the screen. Blake going to put a lot of pressure and try to get past him as quickly as possible to get himself back into that lead and continue to grow. Once Mark pits, you're probably going to see this shake out to be a Blake Scott. Kurt still running in third position, which will be second once Mark goes down the pit at about a 14.5 second deficit to Blake Scott. And there you have it, Mark going right in the pits here. That is going to turn your lead back over to this gentleman coming out of the pits. His stall is done. That was a 142 lap in and out of the pits. 142.9 as a matter of fact. We've got some other drivers. Jeff still out on the track. Perchowski is going to be in third position as he is going to pass Mark. Kurt is going to assume your second position. So after Mark gets his pit stop completed, we're going to go back through the field here to reset you. So again, Blake Scott leading about 14.5 seconds back as this gentleman here, Kurt, with a fantastic pit stop, getting back out, has had a great run. But do not look now, because this driver and the one behind him, all three of these drivers that you can see in Kurt's rear view mirror are coming after him. That is Jeff Perchowski, Nicholas Cody, and Ken Huber has made his way back into the top 5. All things considered, I believe Ken is happy about his position, but he is not done just yet. So we're going to go right back here, and you can see this fight that is fixing to ensue for fourth. Down through that double right-hander. Getting right through your S's. We're going to try to take a look at some lap times in and out of the pits. Blake Scott at a 2:02.114. Kurt a couple of seconds slower at a 2:04. So Blake putting a few seconds on the field under the pit stops. As you can see, Ken now really starting to put the pressure on Nicholas. That's right on board with Ken. You see it taking that wider entry to be able to set himself up for this right-hander. You see the power of that Corvette really with that shorter shift and being able to get right to the back bumper of that Porsche. But again, those Porsches so good getting into the turns, being able to be powerful and quick under braking. Nicholas doing a fantastic job to stay in front of this driver. Go up just a little bit to Jeff in this battle that is starting to heat up for second position. These are the closest battles on the track, but this is for second all the way back through fifth. Throw a blanket under these drivers here at Sonoma Raceway. Looks like Kurt really starting to put a little bit of gap on Jeff, about a 0.6 of a gap on him. But man, that Corvette just so good under braking. Kurt really been out on an island on his own so far this race, now starting to feel the pressure of Jeff on his back bumper. All of these drivers turning fantastic laps. Jeff last lap at a 30.398. Kurt at a 30.509, so about a 10th slower. Again, all this going on about 15 seconds behind your leader, Blake Scott. Oh, Jeff with a little wiggle. And that's going to check him up just a little bit. That downhill looked like he got a little loose under braking. And that's going to give Kurt just a little bit of breathing room now. So you can see Porsche, Vet, all fighting it out. Ken Huber with that slip early on can now, in his front windshield, see that second position. What a tremendous drive back to the front, but it gets increasingly harder as these drivers turn in some fantastic lap times. Ken going purple last lap. You can see that purple on his name, setting the fastest lap of the race with a 1:29.611. You can see the debris starting to pile up on the outside of these turns where these drivers are not running. That is rubber off of these tires. One of those things that has that new debris model for iRacing, you as a driver do not want to get in because you have zero grip when you touch that debris and get that on your tires. You can see now Jeff getting off track just a little bit. You can see it starting to kick up. These still your closest battles on the track. We will go back through your field soon, but we want to stay right here and watch these battles unfold. Kurt doing a great job just looking out the front of his windshield, turning his laps. Not making any mistakes. Jeff on the attack. And as a driver sitting back behind Kurt, you're just trying to find those spots where you think that you can get by, those spots where you're a little bit faster. As Jeff is going to send it in, and it looks like he's going to try to get a drive off the bottom. Can't quite turn it and get underneath of that Porsche. He's going to tuck back in, but the pressure is on. The fight is on. Check some other spots here. Jeff using every part of that track up on that curb. Again, these Porsches just doing a fantastic job getting into the turn. You can see the Porsche, see Nicholas right behind Jeff, really able to drive that in. Jeff probably a little gun shy on that downhill after he had to check up and lose a couple of tenths before. He's going to take that just a little bit easier. Again, Kurt just running his race, looking out the front. His goal here is to not have any incidents. Do not go off track. Let's go back here and look and see if we can find out what happened to Noah. Does look like Noah passing the slower car on the outside. He's going to overcook that turn just a little bit, get himself right back on track. All right, this race still burning this fight. Kurt starting to stretch it out just a little bit, about 0.3 a lap faster that lap than Jeff was, and that's going to bring Jeff back to Nicholas just a little. And instead of being the one on the attack, you could see Jeff very soon being the one on defense. You can just tell the amount of elevation change and the load and unload on the suspensions on these GT3s. So you can really see those Porsches just lay over on that right front going downhill. See if we can't go back here to Ken and see what Ken's looking at. Ken just sitting back, being patient. Trying to find a spot to pass. Just looking for one small mistake so he can sneak the front end of that Corvette on the right or left side of that Porsche. We'll tell you, you look at the lap times of these drivers. Second place, Kurt with a 30.9. Jeff, a 30.825, so about a tenth faster. Nicholas, even faster than that at a 7.45. And then even faster than that, Ken at a 6.39. It certainly does help them to be in tow. Mark Scott is going to be your sixth place driver, but he's going to be about 8 seconds behind Ken in sixth place. Barring anything happening out of control for these drivers, I believe Mark is going to stall out in sixth and not be able to run these drivers down as they continue to turn fast laps. Blake last lap at a 30.737. Again, about an 18-second lead in front of this field. Just absolutely dominating this race right now. Blake turned a 30.288 that last lap. Ken again with that wide swing into the last hairpin. Believe he's just working, trying to find another tenth, trying to find a half a tenth, a couple of more feet so that he can really start putting pressure on the back of that blue Porsche. Folks, your top 10 right now. Blake Scott leading. Kurt Basler is going to be in second. Jeff Perchowski is going to be in third. Nick Cody is going to be in fourth. Fifth, Ken Huber is who we are following around here in this Corvette. Sixth is going to be Mark Scott. Trevor O'Neill in seventh. Mark Samancic is going to be in eighth. Moskowitz in ninth. Sheffer in 10th. Oh, here comes the move. No, Ken started to look out, try to give a little pressure to that Porsche, and I believe he's done it. Made Nicholas drive that just a little bit more aggressive into that turn. It's one of those things that Ken's probably going to file in the back of his head, and Nicholas too, for that matter. When you see that kind of move, Nick trying to protect that spot, going to overcook it just a little bit. Go back and take a look at Bob. Bob again just really struggling at this track. And he is going to take that car on into the pits. As we go back to this four-way battle. Live as they're going to sneak up turn one and see what we can come up with as Ken still on the back bumper. We now are going to have a lap car in play here as Brian Beckett in the 17th position. Looks like he is just going to duck and get out of the way, but that is going to check quite a few of these drivers up as they're going to have to go on the outside of him in that turn. That could not have worked better for your second place driver. But I will tell you that draft and on these longer straightaways is going to help Jeff get right back to the back bumper again. As we now have 15 minutes left to go in this race, 15 to go. When does the patience wear out? When does somebody throw caution to the wind and try to make a move? Let's continue to go back through your field as these drivers are going to keep battling it out. Mark Scott, as you can see, now has that damage fixed on the front end of that car. Really nice drive and come back from him, having to start in the pits, getting that first turn accident, having some pretty severe damage on the front end. To battle his way back to 6th position is just a fantastic drive for him. Trevor O'Neill is going to be in 7th position. We've seen him quite a few times battling it out, as it looks like he is going to have another battle on his hands, as Mark, now in 8th, has caught this driver. He's about 9/10 away, as Trevor's going to take the high line on the outside, almost touching that inside barrier of the outside line of that turn. So it looks like everybody's got the temperature up in these tires. That uphill has not been as slick as it seemed to have been earlier on in the race. Looks like that gap has stabilized here at about a 7/10 of a second. Wade with a nice quiet night. Started in 9th, running in 9th. Great top 10 drive for this driver. Daniel Sheffer, same, nice, clean. Unfortunately, we have seen that Porsche into some accidents earlier in the first couple of races. So great to see him really out here running well and keeping that car clean. Noah Zimmerman in 11th. Again, another good quality, quiet night for Noah. Angel Rodriguez, saw him really battling it out earlier. As you can see, the leader right behind Angel. Angel running in 12th, up 3 positions from his starting spot, is going to give way and let Blake take that left-handed line, and he is going to put Angel a lap down. So we're going to keep going through this field. Leroy Koblenz, again, told you in practice, top 10 speed. Had a little off track earlier, but he is up 3 spots, now in 13th position. Nice, clean Acura. This might be the best finish of Leroy's season so far. Russ Martin, about the same with Russ. Been quiet all night, and sometimes that's a great thing. As Russ now in 14th position at Buttcrack Motorsports Acura. And he is going to have Rory 4 position right behind him with a 6/10 of a gap. So we're going to stick it right here as Rory really trying to put the pressure on Russ. Your top 5 still in that same spot there, as close as they were before. You've got Kurt in 2nd, Jeff is in 3rd, Nick is in 4th, and then Ken in 5th. So nothing changed so far up front. We will check on that periodically as we continue to go through this field. Bob Carroll, we saw him going into the pits a little bit earlier. Mark Scott right behind him, trying to find a way around. As Bob continuing to struggle. And gets up in those marbles, and when that happens, that thing is just difficult to drive. As you can see, he's going to do that again, and he's going to spin right off of the front of Mark Scott's nose. And that's what happens, folks, when you get into those marbles. It's just, I believe Bob is probably going to take that thing to the pit. He might have a fast repair left. As you can see, let's go back and see what has happened. Looks like Russ is going to be in the pits right behind him. I do not see anything where Russ has wrecked, but it does look like he has jumped to the pits. All right, as we go back up to this 2nd through 5th positions, and now we are inside of 10 minutes at 9.5 minutes to go in this race. And again, you can still see these drivers 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th, all within a second of each other, just trying to find some extra speed. You know, Jeff is sitting back in 3rd, and he's braking a little earlier to find a little drive off, or braking a little bit later to give a little drive in, doing everything he can do to find something, a podium on the line here, as Jeff now under attack from Nicholas Cody. Nicholas with the drive of his season so far, right on the back bumper of Jeff. Jeff with a couple of accidents so far in this season, showing a lot of speed early as it looks like, oh, Nicholas is going to take an off track, get himself right back on. There is no telling how close that driver was to completely losing it coming down that hill. And that is going to back those two drivers up, him and Ken, and give Jeff just a little bit of breathing room as we now have 8.5 minutes left to go in this race. Ken Huber really on the back bumper now of Nicholas. So you can see him really charging through the S's. Ken, your points leader, sitting back in 5th. Lap 1, turn 1, accident, sliding off of the track and having to wait for the entire field to go by, putting him in dead last, having to come all the way back up with just a monster drive up to 5th place. As your driver that is leading this race, Blake Scott, just on cruise control, now up 22 seconds over this entire field. You will see this from time to time, especially on road courses with no full course caution. You get a driver that's just a little bit quicker than everybody else in every turn, and before you know it, within an hour, you've got somebody at 23, 24 seconds ahead, and that's what you have here with this driver. Won the first race, leading the second race before an accident and a spin made him battle his way back, dominating this race. So as we take inventory, this is the driver that everybody's going to be gunning for. Ken running up front in every race, finishing in the top 3. I believe if he finishes 5th here, he will not have finished outside of the top 5. So very stable, consistent driver as well. You can tell that car, even under acceleration, just a little loose. Blake having to chase it. All right, 7.5 minutes to go. We have not lost sight of this battle. We're going to go right back here, though, to Wade Moskowitz, Daniel Sheffer, as this battle is going to start to heat up. Wade had a nice, quiet night. You can see a little damage on the rear end of that Porsche. Nice, quiet night so far, but now it looks like Daniel starting to put the pressure on him, as it looks like he is going to start looking on the left-hand side. Wade taking that a little bit wide. You do see some right rear damage on this Porsche. That does look like that was a wreck. Let's see if we can go back and find out what happened to Wade here. Running by himself, and there it is. Oh, that's what's going to create. Oh, and it looks like he's going to back right into the tire barrier to get out of the way as Russ goes by on the inside. And that's what's put Daniel Sheffer right to his back bumper. Now it looks like we are going to find Wade with another wreck. And there he goes again in the same spot. And that is going to put him right back into the pits, as that does look like that is going to take his engine out in this Porsche. You see the front clip coming off of that car, and he's just going to roll on into the infield. And it looks like he's going to be under enough power to get himself right over to the pits and not have to take a tow. Oh, he's going to keep going in this Porsche. All right, let's go back live. So we'll go back up here for this second and third places. It looks like Ken might be trying to make a move here. Nick guarding that inside, couldn't quite get that move done. He had a little window. Could not get that move done. So hard to pass at this track. Oh, and there he goes. He's going to shoot it off to the inside. Oh, and that is going to put Nicholas Cody up into the tire barriers. Let's go back and take a look. Oh, what a huge change of events. Nicholas Cody is going to get off the track and rub that tire barrier. I believe he's going to be able to get back on with minimal damage to that car. Oh, it does look like that car has gotten hurt. That might put him into the pits. Oh, that is a killer for such a great drive for this Porsche driver. That is going to put Ken up to fourth now as Nicholas just trying to give some additional room, kind of a racing deal. That's just a killer for a really great race. Nothing to hang your head about there, as Nicholas put on a fantastic run with all four of these drivers super close to each other, running tight. It was bound to happen. There was a little slip up and you just get one tire off. As you can see, Jeff now with two tires off, using that downhill, using every inch of this track and then a little extra, as he is starting to really put some pressure on. It looks like he's going to try a downhill move. Could not make that happen. Kurt going to fend it off and keep going. As now, folks, we've been watching this. We are now only 2 minutes away from the end of this race. And we have a burner of a race for second position, as don't look now, but Ken Huber really putting the throttle down and trying to catch up to these two after making that pass on Nicholas Cody. Nicholas going to fall back to seventh spot. Mark Scott going to put himself back into the top five. Kurt with a little mistake, just touching the grass, had to check up a little bit. Jeff really pouring it on at this stage in the race. Oh, he's going to get loose, and that might open the door for Ken. Going to get loose out of that tight hairpin, and now this has put Jeff from being aggressive now on defense. Oh, and Jeff is going to slide it in to try to protect the inside line. Jeff now out of rhythm, trying to get himself back in. I believe Ken cut him a break there. This is for a podium position. These two Corvettes battling each other. Jeff with some fantastic speed all throughout this season, and he is going to shoot that high. That's going to allow Ken to take a look on the inside, but just not been able to put it together. Ken trying to do a switchback. That's not going to work. Jeff defending that inside line with everything that he has. Ken wanting to come back and get a podium position. Jeff once putting pressure on Kurt for second, now is defending for third. 15 seconds to go. 24 seconds up is Blake Scott. Ken not letting Jeff go, staying extremely tight to his back bumper. He's going to have a great run here down the front stretch. Is he going to try this outside line again? This has been where Ken is trying to find the most speed. He's not going to be able to get it done this time. He's going to have to find another spot. We're going to go right back up here. Blake Scott with a huge lead, flashing those lights. We don't want to miss any of this. As Kurt now is going to get off track just a little bit. That's going to choke this back up for Jeff. Folks, Blake Scott is going to be your winner. We apologize not getting him underneath of this checker flag, but we have got a barn burner of a race here for your podium spots. Ken with just a few turns left to try to make a move to get himself on the podium. Jeff really choking up on the back end of Kurt now. Kurt just trying to find his spots, hit his braking marks, and I believe he's going to be okay. But you have got a driver breathing down your neck here. And Jeff, and it looks like Jeff's going to get a great run off of that turn. He's going to try to dive it off. Kurt's going to have to give him some room. Is Ken going to try to follow? Last turn, Kurt's going to go high, and he's going to get the marbles. That's going to let these two Corvettes get underneath of him. Kurt is going to go from second all race long to now finishing in fourth, as Jeff is going to take over the second spot. Ken in third. Kurt is going to come in fourth. Kurt with a little bobble right at the end of that race. Wow, folks, what a fantastic finish here. If you don't like this kind of road course racing, I don't know what to tell you, because this All-American Racing Series is putting on a show for everyone to see. Jeff Perchowski with a fantastic move at the end. Kurt getting up in those marbles, that debris model really affecting that driver. What a fantastic race by Kurt, and please do not take anything away from that driver, as he done an absolute amazing job all race long. Wow, what a fantastic job. Let's see if we can't pop your, we got a couple of drivers that's going to finish and starting to cross the start finish line, and we're going to get these drivers up here to the waiting room. And it does look like we have a couple here in the waiting room, so we're going to go ahead and start getting our interviews in. And we're going to hide this, and we're going to pop up Mr. Ken Huber. He is going to be your third place finisher tonight. And let's see if we can't get a word with him. Hey, Ken, John Ross in the booth. You got a copy?
Hey, John, how's it going?
Whew, I'll tell you, I don't know, but I'm sweating just sitting here watching you guys, man. That so I guess walk me through that first turn.
I was hoping you were gonna just totally forget about that, to be honest with you.
You know, that was one of those trouble areas. I brought a couple of drivers up, and I talked to them a little bit before, and I watched the practice, and I knew on cold tires that was going to be a problem. And you were not alone. I can tell you that there were some other drivers that got loose right there, but you know, had to wait on the whole field, and then just made a drive back. So a couple of things. One, talk to me about that first turn. Two, talk to me about the decision when you were behind Mark Scott to come in and pit a little early.
Yeah, so well, the first mistake, well, God, I shouldn't have made it, but I'll tell you that you know, I was trying to take it easy. I just wanted a nice clean start. Everybody seemed to go in single file, so I was actually going slower than I normally would be, just to make sure everybody could get through the corner clean, and the car just came out from under me. So lesson learned, don't go slow, I guess. Don't slow down. I was going slower than I was used to, so I guess I messed that up and on cold tires. So I don't know. I had to go back and look at it and see what exactly how I could fix that kind of mistake. But then, yeah, the early pit stop, that was that was just to get out of traffic and make some time up. And you can see I did make some time up. And so, you know, I figured as soon as I can get in a pit window, I could get maybe on some clean track, because I was following, I think it was Mark. Yeah, I was following Mark that whole time, and he was just a tad slower than I was. So I figured get away from him, and then I might be able to make up some time.
Well, you really did, and I guess the last thing, and you did make up some time, and that's what we thought here in the booth was, you know, get yourself out of traffic, be able to turn some clean laps, get as much air as you can on the front of that Corvette, and you were, you know, there was a spot there where you were about a tenth off of what Blake was running, but certainly the second fastest car there on the track, and then I guess that last turn looks like Jeff got a really good run on Kurt coming out, hits the right hand side of it. Kurt gets up in those marbles and just opens the door for you on that last turn.
Yeah, that was just given to me. I gifted. I thought he was out of gas or something. He was so slow, but yeah, I felt like that corner was gifted to me.
Yeah, well, it brought you in a third position. So if we take a tally, you've got a win and a second and a third, I believe. So fantastic job so far on this season, and we're still early, but you've shown a lot of pace here in this Corvette. And congratulations on your podium. And Ken, I'm going to turn it over to you, sir.
Well, I want to thank you guys, the league. Thank you guys in the booth for doing the broadcast. I always like going back the next day or so and watching it. And then hats off to Blake for another win. He's definitely dominant this season. And congrats to Jeff on that second place finish. So that's about it.
We appreciate that, Ken, and fantastic drive back up through the field.
Thank you, sir. Have a good night.
You too. All right, there was your third place driver, Ken Huber. And let's see if we can't go over here and get our second place driver of Jeff. It looks like he is in the waiting room. So let's bring him up to the top. Jeff, do you have a copy?
Yeah, I got you, John. What's going on? How'd you
Well,
like that race?
I
A
will.
lot of fun.
I will tell you, Jeff. I feel like and we stayed on the four of you. I mean, you could have put second through fifth under a blanket there, and it was
Yeah.
lap after lap after lap, and it looked like Kurt would get a little bit on you. Just looked like that Porsche was getting in the turn a little bit better. You were getting off a little bit better, and then it looked like right there, you were playing offense, and then you were playing defense. You walk me through it. You tell me how that was.
Yeah. Yeah, you said it all right there in a nutshell. I noticed that Kurt and all the Porsches in the race were really good. Had really good traction off the slow corners, and there's a lot of slow corners at Sonoma. That made it pretty tough for me. I was able to get in the corner pretty good. The Corvette brakes are really, really good. Like turn one, I gained a lot on him there. But coming out of the hairpin in turn 11, and then also the hairpin after the carousel, he gained a lot on me. So as long as I was able to stay within that second gap, I knew I had a shot at it. And then Nicholas in the 7, another Porsche, he had the same strengths as Kurt. So he was chasing me from behind me about the same gap, about a second, less than a second. And I was just, I was mirror driving, and then I was like looking at Kurt, mirror driving, looking at Kurt, like every other corner. And eventually, Ken got to Nicholas, and I don't know what happened to Nicholas, but Ken ended up getting by him. And then I'm like, okay, breather. Got a little bit of a gap between me and Ken. Now I just got to focus on Kurt, just stay with him, force him to make a mistake. I did a really good job of keeping the car clean throughout the race, and I was really happy with that. This is actually the first time I've raced this combo, so I was really happy with how I managed the race. But I ended up focusing too much on just trying to keep the car on the track with Kurt, that Ken slowly, couple tenths, was gaining on me. I was like, oh, geez, here we go again. And I was sure that he was going to get me. And there was a couple of times where I almost lost the car trying to keep it away from him. He would gain huge on me in the braking zones and out of the corners. I was just trying so hard to keep within that striking distance of Kurt to have a chance. And then once I got away from him, the first half, the last lap, I was like, okay, now let's just focus on Kurt. No more mistakes. Let's see if we can force Kurt to make a mistake. And ended up getting a little bit of a run on him off of turn 10, that sweeping right-hander. Kurt didn't have the last couple laps, he hadn't had a great corner there. And that was probably my best part of the track as the tires were out, and you could kind of get the car sideways a little bit. And I just dove it in on the inside. I don't think I, sent it in too hard or anything. I had my normal braking point, and when I was behind Kurt, I was having to hold back a little bit to not get into the back of him. And we got it done. We just stuck it to the inside, and it looks like he got passed by Ken as well. So I just can't say thank you enough to those guys for racing me clean and having a great battle, 2 through 5 really for most of the race. And Kurt was with me most of the time, and he pitted when I pitted, and we just seemed to find each other like pretty much every week in this league. So I'm happy I was able to come out on top.
Yeah, it was really a blast broadcasting it and watching it, and I think you said it exactly right. It looked like Kurt might have gotten up into the marbles there on that last turn, and I think that's how Ken was able to get back by, because this new model has really created some of that where you really have to watch your line going into these turns. You take it a little wide, you get those marbles, and it's over. But fantastic to watch you, Jeff. I know that you had a couple of rough races, the first and second race, and I said, we always talked about how you got a lot of speed, and you put it all together tonight. So congratulations on the second place. I know that was a fantastic run for you. I know that was a ton of fun, and we had a hell of a time watching it. So we'll turn it over to you, sir.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Yeah, you said it exactly right. Really wanted to get a top 5 at Road America, one of my stronger tracks, and Long Beach, I had pretty good speed. So we managed decent results there, but cannot be more happy for this P2. Keeps us in the championship battle. I just want to say thanks to the Bean team, High Velocity TV, everybody watching from there, Christian, Jackson, all those guys. They're the reason I do this, and they're the reason why we got people like you, John, that are with us, and we have a great community over there. So Yeah, I just want to thank them, thank the guys for racing, and thanks to you guys for putting on a great broadcast as always.
Yeah, you
Really
did
appreciate it.
absolutely, Jeff, and you did a fantastic job. It was just enjoyable to watch it, and I'm sure it was enjoyable to race it. So we
I'm glad it
appreciate you,
was.
and we will look forward to talking to you next week.
10-4. Thank you, sir.
All right, thanks, Jeff. All right, there is your second place driver with a fantastic battle. Now we're going to go to the man that just put this thing on cruise control and put himself about 24 seconds up in the lead. And we're
Good
going
race,
to
man.
bring him in. Blake, you got a copy?
Yes, I do.
Well, Blake, you qualified on the pole again, and it looked like you just kind of got out there for a Sunday drive. And while they had a heck of a battle behind you, so talk me through your night.
Yeah, it was unfortunate. My dad's computer shut off the race start, so we started from the pits, and then going into turn one, I look in my mirror and Ken's backwards. So it was a different night. I was expecting a good race between Ken, but yeah, hard fought back to third. It was a great race for him. But yeah, that track's a tricky one. It was super hot at the beginning of the race. Track was super slippery. Just tried to keep it on the track. Went for the grand slam in points. I think I got it with the fastest lap and whatnot. But yeah, it was a unusual night. I'll take it.
Yeah, it looked like you turned to 6 there after you come out of the pits, about the second or third lap out of your pits, and I think that that gave you the purple fast lap for the race. So it's fantastic job. Were you out of about turn 2 or 3 when you had that downhill coming into the hard right hander? I noticed that it seemed like the bigger horsepower cars, the Mustangs, the Vets, they were getting some little off tracks there on the left hand side. Did you find some of these tighter turns at this track a little bit harder to navigate with the Mustang?
Yeah, definitely in practice and qualifying, pushing. In the race, I was more cautious of it. I was aware, so I was trying. I actually ended the race with 0 incidents, which was my goal. But yeah, no, those tight, tricky turns were really catching people off, especially myself in practice and qualifying, like I said.
Yep, it really did. And the other thing I really wanted to ask you is when you get a big lead like that, you know, when you can see that and you can see your lap times versus everybody else, when it goes through your mind, are you managing pace or do you not want to get yourself out of rhythm at a track like this where rhythm is so important?
Yeah, I was actually I found like a good happy medium there. I wasn't pushing 100%, but at the same time, you don't want to back down too much because that's when you start making mistakes and just losing concentration. So yeah, I was just putting in consistent fast laps. I wasn't pushing crazy, but yeah, just trying to find my rhythm and locked in and had a great race. So I'm happy with it.
Yes, you did, and great race. The first race bringing home the victory and leading at Long Beach. You know, I had the pleasure of watching the broadcast, but leading at Long Beach, a little mistake there, but then coming out and putting in a great race here. So 3 races, 2 wins. Blake, fantastic job so far. I do believe you will be the points leader coming out of this. So I'll turn it over to you, sir.
Yeah, thanks to you guys. I love watching these broadcasts back. It's a lot of fun. Shout out to the family watching. Love you guys, and we'll see you all next week. Appreciate it.
Yep, we look forward to it. Thanks again, Blake.
Have a good night.
All right, and there was your race winner here at Sonoma Raceway in the All-American Racing Series. Another dominating performance by Blake Scott. We will crunch some numbers, get some points together where you can view that next week as we continue to go through our schedule. And as a matter of fact, we are going to bring that up now. As you can see now, Sonoma Raceway in the books. We go to a big one next week, Daytona International Speedway. And as we all know, the 24 was just here and with us this last weekend. A lot of these drivers competing in the 24. Not a whole lot of practice going to be needed here. It's just going to be hop into these cars and see who's the fastest. Then we're going to go to Laguna Seca, Coda, Sebring, and Indy. So those are your next few races coming up. Can't wait for next week. And we want to say thank you to everybody that has joined us tonight for another fantastic race. As you saw, good performance by Blake again, and really great racing 2nd through 5. We had a lot of drivers with some good solid races tonight. So We certainly appreciate it, and we will see you all next